Alright. Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Doctor Who Review, episode number 39. This one being a story from the Third Doctor's era. Yes, a story known as Frontier in Space. Yes, actually the first of three straight John Pertwee stories. Yes. We start out with Frontier in Space. Yeah, I have the DVD collecting Dalek War. So, now there are two interesting fun facts about Frontier in Space. Number one, it is the final story of the original actor who played the Master, Roger Delgado, because 3 months after, 3 months after this story concluded in March of 1973, Roger Delgado was involved in a car crash in Turkey, which ended his life. And for what I read a little research, apparently his death was mainly the reason why that John Pertwee decided to leave the end of the following year. Yeah, that was simply the reason for it, because him and Roger Delgado are good friends, I'm not really sure. Also, the second fun fact about the story, it is the third to last regular appearance of Jo Grant. Yes, third to last. Her final appearance being Green Death, before she returns for a quick two-parter during the Serenity Adventures, played still by the same actress, Kathy Manning. This one does not involve a... Now, here's the thing. This is set during John Pertwee. Is there any, scenes on present-day Earth in this whole story? The answer is no. There's none of that. The whole thing is set in the future of, maybe 27th, 28th century. They mentioned about the Earth Empire. Now, they do mention in a previous story about the Galactic Federation. Yes. Now, basically the story of this one starts out with the Doctor and Jo ending up on a spaceship in the future, and then Jo looks outside, he's in a spaceship, all of a sudden she hears a strange sound, and the ship changes. And one thing I also got to point out, though, this this story loves reusing sets. There is, 4 sets that are frequently seen throughout this 6-part story. Now, you might be thinking, what sets are they? Well, the bridge of this spaceship is the same exact bridge they use on 2 other spaceships. Yeah, the same exact one. The other sets they love frequently using is the office of the President of the Earth Empire, who, by the way, is a woman. Yes, a woman. That's something you don't see a lot in sci-fi, where in the future, with the exception of present-day stuff, you don't usually see a woman being in charge. Usually it's a guy. Which, gotta praise the writer of the story. The guy who wrote it, I believe, was Malcolm Hockey. Good job on his part for doing that. Now, she, of course, is basically written to be a very competent person. Unlike her general, who basically is there, Jenna Williams, who, by the way, is viewed... Now, they mentioned that they had just gone off... Now, apparently, it was about 20 years prior to the story, there was a war between Earth and the Draconians. Now, oddly enough, the species would not actually appear again after this. Oh, there is one other fun fact with the story that I almost forgot to mention. This also was the final appearance of the Ogrons. The last regular appearance of them, aside from the appearance in Dimension in Time. So technically, mostly I've covered almost all their appearances. They did also appear in the previous story, which I'll discuss in the future when I get into the story. So basically, everything was actually really weird. The Earth meant the Draconians, and, well, yeah, when they think the Draconians are being in the spaceship, turns out it's actually Ogrons. Which, by the way, this is the first ever seen since Day of the Daleks. Yes. And of course, Jo points out the obvious thing. Weren't the Ogrons mercenaries for the Daleks? Yes. Yes, indeed. Yes, oddly enough, they were, in fact, well, they're mercenaries. And they still actually are. Yep. They still actually are their mercenaries. They still work for them. And Yeah, and turns out these ones are under the employ of the Master. He apparently is their employer. Now, the Ogrons are mercenaries. They're also really stupid. Yeah. So apparently, thanks to a hypnotic device, the Ogrons are seen by the Earthmen as Draconians, and Draconians are seeing Ogrons as, well, Earthmen are seeing Ogrons as Draconians and vice versa. They also this frequent thing of like, oh, you're attacking our ships, stealing our supplies. And Draconians like, well, you're doing the same thing. This is a constant thing in the first half of the story. And of course, Doctor points out, though, there's a body involved. And this also is the first. Now, he does mention he has met the Draconians before, and we meet up with the Emperor later on in the story. He mentioned he actually visited the homeworld of the Draconians 500 years prior to this story. We helped the 15th Emperor deal with the plague. Now, where the plague came from, they don't really go into exactly the backstory of that. They do go into the backstory of how the heck the war started. Apparently, it was started by General Williams. Yes, seriously. Yeah, apparently it's revealed that he apparently fired upon the spaceship, which was a Draconian battlecruiser. They're like, why would you come battlecruiser? You think a noble basically would come with anything less than that? And it was destroyed. Now, here's the thing. Despite being a Draconian battleship, and this turns General Williams to their side, their missile banks were empty. So basically, they destroyed an unarmed spaceship. Which, of course, General Williams regrets doing that. And, of course, that's when they decided to work together. Now, the way the Draconians found out about the Ogrons is that one of the Ogrons who were basically hypnotic, people think that they're basically Earthmen, basically gets knocked out. And the Doctor can easily see that this is not that. Apparently, the Doctor is immune to this hypnotic suggestion. It could be because, basically, he's got a very strong will. Possibly, but don't really go into detail exactly why he's immune to it. And Joe apparently is the only who actually can hear the noise for some reason. At several points in the first half of the story, Doctor and Joe are frequently imprisoned. First on a spaceship, so on Earth, the brief escape, they get recaptured. And that's basically how it is the first half of the story, which not really found of, oh, capture, escape, recapture. That happened first half of the story. At one point, the Draconians briefly held the Doctor at the consulate, and he reveals to the person there that it wasn't the Earthmen attacking their spaceships, it was the Ogrons. And of course, basically, he strikes me as the president, which she didn't believe him. Of course, the general, before he basically turned aside, he just doesn't know. He thinks they're Draconian agents, because if you ask him, like, where do you recruit them? Of course, he thinks Draconian agents, despite the fact he has no evidence to back it up. Yes. So, then after, well, the whole thing with and of course in the case of the Doctor, in the case of his stuff he said, he is sent to the lunar penal colony. Well, he's in prison on the moon. Or apparently political prisoners sent there. Now, as for how long it's supposed to stay there, do not know, because they're sent there and just basically quiet away, put away in the closet. Oh, we can't hear you. You're basically high up in space. We can't hear you can't hear your stuff. You're basically true. Yes, that is how basically this little colony is treated. And now, Doctor's only held here for 2 episodes. And he's at one story, and the next story he's basically released. Well, due to the fact that he was almost nearly got killed due to a lack of oxygen, which the Master, who was a commissioner in the future for some reason, that really explained. Okay, here's a question this story never bothers to answer. Hey, Master, where the heck is your frickin' TARDIS? That's a really good question. They actually don't bother to say where his TARDIS is. It's weird, to say the least. Because he's using a spaceship, which was stolen, by the way, and it is by far one of the most baffling things. So, after going aside, eventually bring it to Earth, and, well, thanks to the whole relation to get the whole sides work together, and they go to home planet the Ogrons. And to General Society, he's like, okay, we'll use my personal scout ship, which essentially is the same exact set we just used in 3 spaceships with the same exact set. My guess, budget. Really tight budget. Because the show was made a shoestring budget a lot of the time. Some episodes have really good special effects. And like, oh, but hyperdrive. Space moves weirdly. The special effects episode don't age very well. I love the story. The story is the best thing about the story, and the acting are the best thing about the story. The sets are fine. No problem with the sets. Also, they eventually get to the Ogron's homeworld. First, Joe gets there with the Master. And the plan is nothing special. Now, here's the Master, ready to go. He's walking around wearing a mandarin collar suit with dress shoes, walking around an area that probably is not very comfortable to be walking in. And he gets to his place like, oh, we have sort of a distress call. And apparently, that was a trap. And the thing is, apparently the Master knew it was the Doctor on board, because who else would come after Joe Grant? Yeah, not the frickin' Earthlings or the Draconians. So we have a small task force good on the planet. Yes, a small task force. We have about, I'd say about 5 or 6 people, along with the prince of the Draconian Empire, who, by the way, does survive the story, and he's never seen again after the story wraps up, near Jerry Williams. So, yeah. So, apparently, it turned to the Master. Okay, then of course, before they leave, let's introduce them to their masters. Well, basically the person who the Master is working with. The Daleks! Yes, this is one of the most memorable things about this ending of the story. Like, here's the thing, I had not seen this story in over a decade, but that image of the Master with the Daleks was the most memorable thing about this thing. And here's a fun fact about that. Did you know the next time that the Master will interact with Daleks, he will interact with him 2 more times in this whole franchise? The first being in the 20th anniversary special. That was the second time they interact with them. That was with the one who was Master of the 80s. And then the third and last known incarnation to interact with Daleks was Missy in The Witch's Apprentice, that premiere, which also was the last known appearance of Deborah in the series. That was the only other time I could think of that Masters interacted with the frickin' Daleks. So, the Doctor's wound does not regenerate. And you're probably thinking, wait, he's wounded. When did he regenerate? Not from that wound. He basically was survived, but he's basically injured, but not so he was near death per se. So, by the way, it's mentioned at the start of the story that the TARDIS is stolen. And by the way, it's been stolen several times. Like, the first time it was ever stolen from him was in, I think it was the Faceless Ones. That was the first time it was ever stolen. It's been stolen here. I believe it was stolen once during the William Hartnell run. Now you might be thinking, was it ever stolen in your Doctor's run? In Tom Baker's? To my knowledge, no. Was never stolen during his run. Okay, what about Peter Davison? No. Colin Baker? Nope. Sylvester McCoy? Nope. Okay. What about the 8th Doctor? Paul I'm trying to think what was his name. It was, kinda, but not really. That one. What about Chris Eccleston? Yes, during the finale. David Tennant's Doctor. I believe the TARDIS on his texture. I think it was taken from him once. Matt Smith, I think once, if I remember correctly. Peter Davison, I don't remember basically during his tenure his TARDIS was stolen from him. What about Jodie Whittaker? Not really. She's been separated from the TARDIS, yes, but it's never stolen, not in the episode I've seen. So, yeah, it doesn't happen a lot per se. It's not basically a popular recurring plot thread. Yeah, so Dr. Brina with the TARDIS I was not seeing it until like the 5th episode. Yes. Well, apparently they took that, putting it in like a wall, which is quite strange. Like, did the Ogrons carve out this hole to put TARDIS here? Also, I should point out though, that thing is freaking heavy. Yeah. Thing must weigh about 2 tons. Even though it's, well, by appearance-wise, it could be pretty light due to the fact it's based on a police box. But that's the alien spacecraft. Well, the other reason why you can probably think the Ogrons get away with it because they have super strength. Okay, perfectly fine. First of which, like, how long did it take to get from that spaceship that the Doctor and Joe ended on to the Ogre home planet? Now, why was it brought to their home planet? Not really sure. It's never really explained why he was brought there. It's probably just a little bit the Doctor just to meet with the Daleks. Daleks don't really do anything at all in the story aside from the shock reveal that they're working with the Master. And there's some interactions. I think they kill one or two people, but that's it. They don't do much in the story. Most of their day they set up the very next story, Planet Dalek. That's really the whole purpose of them in the story. But this is an excellent story. By the way, Jerry Williams and the Draconian, they get away, but sadly, they're never seen again. Here's the strange thing. Almost all the actors in the story, with the exception of Kate Manning, a.k.a. Joe Grant, are all deceased. Everyone who's playing the story is no longer alive. Yeah, nobody. Not even John. No, John Pertwee, he's been dead since the 90s. But everyone else has died in the last 20 years or so. But isn't it interesting, though, that out of all people who were associated with the era of John Pertwee, that almost everybody associated with him is pretty much all no longer alive, except for Kate Manning, who played Joe Grant. I think the only person that's alive who was part of his era, I believe it was the actor who played John Benton. The one who's basically sort of a comedic character, kind of. The actor is still very much alive. He's in his 80s, but he's still very much alive. There are only two left alive from that era. Late 70s, well, some are no longer alive, but I think the earliest story where it featured a live actor still very much alive is the City of Death story. That was the earliest Doctor Who story where all the actors are still pretty much alive. And that came back in the late 70s, that one. Yep. But yeah, excellent story. I love Frontier in Space. The weakness of the story is just the special effects. But everything else, the story, the pacing is actually pretty good. Though the captioning basically was basically a turn. Now, here's the strange thing. Did the story need to be 6 episodes? I didn't have a really big issue with it at all. Unlike some stories didn't really need to be 6-part, this one was perfectly fine. I mean, I could easily see this as a full season story arc. Basically, is how good the story is. Yes. Malcolm Huckey. Great job this guy did. Basically, every single piece of dialogue. That wasn't going to be stupid in the story. Well, Jerry Williams, but that was due to his beliefs. I don't think he was going to be stupid. Not necessarily. I think that the only people who were in stupid was those two actors who apparently couldn't see the fact they're looking at freaking humans. Well, and the Doctor is freaking mistaken the story to be a human, or at least an Earthman, but he isn't. Also, this I thought really went nowhere. The Peace Party appeared in a couple of episodes, and they were dropped. It's they're there, and then they're gone. Yeah. Also, I did think that the special effect of Doctor be supposedly in space when it gets clear on a set. I think that was done well. I think it was done pretty well. That part actually, I think, aged really well. The only thing that, in my opinion, a lot of the special effects of the story did not age very well. Like the hyperdrive stuff, that didn't age very well at all. But, still a good story. I do recommend it for Doctor Who fans. But I would recommend, if you're going to watch the story, you got to watch the following story, Planet Daleks, because that sets up that very story. You could say, Frontier Space, just basically a lot of it just set up for Planet Daleks. And that kind of basically what it kind of serves as, but it's a good story. But I would also recommend the story not just because it sets up Planet Daleks, but because it's the last appearance of the original actor who played the Master. Yep. But damn good story. Okay, so that's a particular view. I'm not sure. I might have time to do one more video. I'm not sure. It depends. Probably Chainsaw Man. Probably, if I don't get a chance to do it tonight, I'll do it tomorrow, along with the Great Job on the Feed. Okay? Bye.